Okay, Charles, I think we're ready.
Okay, welcome everyone. I look forward to our discussion. Um, I think I'll just throw out a few terms from Jean. Um, One is implying. So basically, as I understand Jean's concept of implying, is that life wants to live. There's an implying forward living process in each one of us. That is in our bodies that we're born with. That was as we come into the world, and this implying encounters the world, as it were. And then the other concept is occurring. So there's an implying of something wanting to live, to be, and then things happen. And the implying the occurring comes into the implying. And again, there's an interaction and something happens. The implying is changed in some way. Maybe it's helped to go further in the direction that it quote unquote wants to. But there's this constant, so when things go smoothly, people grow, live, develop, they receive the kind of nurturing or response that helps them, as Jean would say, carry forward, live their life. But as we all know, it isn't always so perfect. And sometimes the implying doesn't receive the kind of response or environment that helps it to go forward. And that's when we have a kind of a stopped process. Now, it's important to distinguish between a stopped process and a dead process. A stopped process is not a dead process. There's the implying is still there, and it can be there for decades. And it's here now. It's here presently in the body. So if I think of it almost as a seed that is waiting for water and soil to begin to germinate, and it can be there a long time. So what I want to suggest we do together is find a spot where our process is stopped in some way. And there's a couple of ways of going about this. One is to invite a sense of the implying of our life when we were born. Jean used to say, we all know in our bodies how it should have been, when we were small, what would have been the right thing. We could feel that. Even if it didn't happen, we still know in our bodies and have some sense of what that would be or could be or should be. So we can invite that. And yet, I've experimented with doing this with a few people, and sometimes going in a journey to the very beginning feels abstract. So I think it's better if we start with some point in your life now where you are feeling stuck, where something's not getting done that you would, for some reason, you don't quite know why, but it's not getting done. Or you have some kind of difficulty in your relationships that you just are frustrated with, but you don't know what to do about it because you always get tangled up in some way. And then I'll do a little exercise where we stay in that spot. We feel it in our body. We had a sense to feel what it's like. And see in there whether it's possible to find the very beginnings of an edge. So for me, this is a little bit like the morning when they're just even before the sun rises. There's something called first light. It usually occurs about a half hour before the sun actually rises. And where I live, the seagulls start going crazy when the first light comes. They're very excited about the new day coming. So if we can find that first light, that little bit of that edge where something that feels impossible begins to have a little sense of possibility. So that's what we'll do together in a little exercise, and then we can come back and discuss. I want to say that with a few people that have done this, it can just be a very beginning where you just get a beginning sense, and you almost have like a X marks the spot where you can go back, like a treasure map where there's, okay, there's treasure here, I'm going to come back. Or sometimes people go very deep and really basic lifelong issues emerge in a powerful way. But either way, it doesn't matter. That wherever you go and wherever you get is fine. So maybe we'll have a little pause here for people to ask questions before we do the guided exercise. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it confusing? Is it too abstract?
This is Gigi bowing. I am
Yes.
wondering, a trauma will be a stop.
Yes. In fact,
Okay.
every stop process, you could say in some ways, if you would define trauma very broadly, anytime when we have a need that wasn't met is some kind of trauma. Not necessarily a violent or rape, but there's some mini way in which we were diminished. And so, yes, I would define broad trauma very broadly as anything that stops our living forward. Yes.
Thank you.
Could you explain again what you mean by a dead process? The dead, yeah.
Well, a dead process would mean that there's nothing there, that it's just, and it would mean like it's sort of like a dead seed. It doesn't have the potential to grow, right? It might have had a potential at some point, but I guess it went with it. All I meant to say is that a stop process is still trying to carry forward. A dead process would be dead, wouldn't be carrying forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'd like to add in there that from Jean's point of view, life just wants to happen, and it doesn't die. That even years and years and years after, the person will have that feeling that, oh, I should have been loved, and I don't know what that is, but there'll be something that is waiting for something, even if the person is protesting, and even if the person has turned into a hater because they don't know what love is, there'll be something that's waiting there to come forth, like a seed that could be in the ground, for hundreds of years. So it's almost like Jean doesn't believe that it's dead.
You might almost say that there isn't a dead process for Jean, maybe.
Yeah. The phrase that I always come back to, that I say often, is every human experience has an implicit forward movement inherent in it. And all it needs is a listening, an evocative, a something that will wake it up. So it's a philosophy of life being quite determined.
Yes, yes. It doesn't, even if it seems to give up, it doesn't ever completely, right? It keeps trying.
I think of a client of mine who would have many dreams of dead babies, a room of all the babies dead. And, you know, on the surface, it was like a dead process. But the fact that it was protesting in the dreams, there was an implicit sense that these babies should not be dead and somebody should do something about it. So it was life trying to come through the protest of, oh, it's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always a sense in those dreams that that's not how it should be, right?
Right, that's right. And maybe we should emphasize that, Charles, that it's not the way it should be. That's often in the client's repetitiveness is the forward movement. It's the protest is the forward movement.
Or it carries the forward movement implicit in it, as it, yeah.
Right.
But sometimes that forward movement is quote unquote stopped.
Yes, sort of like a leaf caught on a branch in the stream, and it can't go down the stream as it would want to.
Would like to, would want to, or it is as its life process implies that it would, if it could.
So could we say that dead means dormant, in fact?
It's more like dormant.
Unexamined?
It's more like dormant.
Yeah, okay.
Although I would say dormant doesn't quite capture the quality of, because that's sort of like it's sleeping. But a stop process is something happening that stops it. So it isn't just going to sleep. There's some way in which, I don't think Gene would have used it, but it's like it got derailed.
There's a barrier.
Yeah. So it needs the proper nurturing and environment, which we, as with our focusing attitude, hopefully can cultivate in ourselves, that allows it to find what it needs, as it were. And this could be in a relationship with a friend or a therapist, or internally as we learn to focus and be kind to ourselves. I'd like to hear from others. If it's clear, pretty basically, if you have basic sense of it, maybe we can just go into the experience, and that'll make it a little more alive.
For myself, I have many stuck processes
Yes.
at any time, and nothing is quite smooth.
Yes.
Or effortless.
Yes.
And I guess I'm thinking you have to pick one that seems prominent and work on that at any given time.
It almost doesn't matter which one you pick.
Yeah.
You pick one. There is an idea here that there may have been almost an early stop process. It's underneath many of our stop processes, that they may have a certain common root, but that would be intellectual unless we actually made contact with that, felt that early stoppage resolve itself, and notice how that radiates throughout different aspects of our living, where we find that we're not so stuck in many ways.
For
One
me,
thing that's just
it's important to understand that with the stopped process, there's a repetition up to the stoppage to get what should happen and it doesn't happen. So there's, think of the fly trapped inside the
Right.
car
I was thinking.
with the window up, and it keeps
Trying.
Hmm.
But Jean points out that it goes bzzzt, and it goes bzzzt, and it goes bzzzt. So each buzz is a slightly different. Each attempt, it leads to even like a little bit, almost like not exactly giving up, but it doesn't have quite the bzzzt that it had when it tried for the first time and banged its head against the glass.
Oh, it's a great image.
That's,
Well, of
he
course,
uses
it's
that in a
genius.
process model.
One thing that feels kind of beautiful to me and kind of almost like an instance of itself is even in this conversation, the fact that there seems to be such an identifying with the stop process seems to me that there's like all of us, that there's this big welling that, oh, those things shouldn't have been stopped. Like it feels so important in us in this conversation to get it, that
Right.
almost is an instance of that feels really alive for me.
That's wonderful, because you see, even though we're not going into the exercise, it's already coming alive as a felt experience.
Right,
And that's really wonderful. Let's go, let's spend a little time, see if we can find, see what it's like to find the process, see what happens. That'd be okay?
Mhm.
Anybody else need urgently to speak before we do that? Okay. So as you might in any focusing process, take some time to feel your body, feel yourself supported by whatever your body's resting on. Let your body, let whatever you're resting on, hold your weight. Let gravity take over and just allow yourself to be supported. Just becoming aware of your whole body, your feet, your legs, your bottom, and the chair, your back, your hands and arms, your breathing. And surely it's an interesting question to ask. How do you know that you're alive? What tells you I'm alive? It's not something you would question. You know that you're alive because you can feel it in your body that you're alive. It's your breath. So there's this whole quality of aliveness. And that's something we've had ever since we came into the world. Maybe even before in the womb. And inside of that aliveness is a wanting to live, an implying of life, of further life. And we can feel that too. And yet at the same time, you can also notice areas where things don't quite go forward the way we would like. And it can be very simple. It can be something that you've been wanting to do for a long time. You never get to it for some reason. You don't even know why. It just at the end of the day comes and you haven't gotten to whatever it was. Or maybe there's some way that you end up feeling awkward or ill at ease in situations. Or there's some hurt that keeps getting stirred up. It seems to possibly go back. I want to see if we can find one spot like that and allow yourself to feel what it's like in your body. You might experience it as something that feels hurt or something that's frustrated. Or just kind of scrunched, tangled, like you're in knots and you can't quite move. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you find your own word or image for what the quality of this place where you're stuck in some way. It's important to feel it in your body. And as we sort of are with that spot, that place that wants to live forward and is somehow stopped. If you stay there quietly, don't run away, you might find that it's just the beginning of an edge of possibility. Like what got stopped can start again. So when you make contact with that place, you sense that there is something there that has the potential still now to resume a process that was stopped. Could feel like blood coming back into the body or something unfreezing or just a sense of a tiny inkling of hope. If that doesn't happen, that's fine. You just stay there. Nothing needs to happen here, really. Nothing needs to change. Just the awareness is enough. Just the awareness is enough. Just the sensing is enough. If that's all we do, it's enough. What you might find is a little shift. And in some cases, you will even find that it takes you to a very deep place. To your earliest and deepest longings. To issues that have dominated your life. To places where you've been struggling. It can also have the quality of pushing, like it's pushing in a good way. It's pushing for life. It's pushing for what would be good or what good would be. I'm going to let it, I'm going to stop this process right now. Just because I'm curious where this may have taken anyone, and it's fine if it didn't do anything, that's okay too, but I'm curious what happened.
I could feel like some buzzing, just very subtle buzzing kind of aliveness. The word freshness feels quite important. A new kind of freshness emerges there in a spot that normally has a lot of somatic dense stuckness.
I like a phrase Jane used to talk, fresh air. It's like something fresh is coming. You could feel that the somatic beginning of something fresh coming.
I felt like an opening in my body for a new space, like there was, I felt a spaciousness of something that then emerged for me. I needed that space.
Yeah, that's lovely. The idea of space is really so important, right? Spaciousness. Yeah.
I felt the emergence of a new part saying, yes, I do have needs. I'm just not okay all the time, like I always say. Like, I'm okay. I don't need anything. Lately, I've been in touch. I do have other places. Right.
Oh, parts are speaking up that have been quiet.
Exactly.
Some people say, oh, it's like a monster's waking up.
I was aware that it wanted to be focused on.
Ah, yeah. It welcomed, right?
Yes, yes. And it wanted to be important, to be recognized, and that it matters, that that's stuff, and that I would spend time really thinking of my knowing it, and
Yeah.
how far it goes back, and
Yeah.
I could really get a sense that it wasn't just mine, it was my mother's, father's also.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Right, we're never just ourselves. We're always ourselves and our environment. Yeah. And that idea that we give it importance by bringing our attention to it is like, yeah, it wants to matter.
I experienced towards the end of the exercises, experience calmness, quiet, like stop of restlessness. And like some part was saying like, well, nothing needs to be done. Everything is okay.
Yeah.
And what's new in it is that just an idea crossed my mind, like, can I take this seriously? Maybe yes.
Wow.
Maybe it's not just being withdrawn. Maybe it's something.
Oh, I'm getting
And
chills.
maybe it's something more than withdrawn. It feels exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, I was getting chills listening to you, Victor. It's kind of like, oh, could this really be serious? Could this really be real?
Yeah. Wow.
It reminds me of what Jean says about how the bad news from down there can be exciting. It can be the good news. Like, oh, there's something really hurt down there, really thwarted down there. And that can be exciting. Oh, I'm hearing from it.
Listening to what you just said, Lynn, asking myself, is it bad news? Is it, maybe I was taking it for bad news. It doesn't feel like bad news.
Mm.
Yeah. You said there was a kind of calm at the end.
Calm, yeah.
Yeah, that seems very
Which
important.
I mostly take for like being withdrawn, being stopped,
I see.
like more like a stoppage. But this time, maybe it's not a stoppage. Maybe it's a forward,
Mm.
I see.
and it's a maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not quite sure yet. Yeah. But there's a maybe. The maybe is there.
Maybe, and this maybe is exciting.
Yeah.
Mm. I like that. The maybe is exciting. Little inkling of something.
I'm curious if the word I have is blocked, and of this particular stop process, and the energy, I'm not sure if it's the energy of the very, very beginning of the edge, or if it's the energy that has been there all along with this blocked process, with this stop process. Because I have an energy of frustration, because it wants to move forward and it's really blocked. And so I'm not sure if that's the beginning of the edge, or if that's this endless process of trying to to move through this block, and it's not able to. And when I'm saying this, I'm remembering of a painting I did where there was this incredible raging face, mouth open, screaming at a bowl that was stuck in its third eye, forehead, and the bowl was stuck on a wall, and it was pushing forward, and it couldn't move forward. The wall was unmovable. And when I dialogue with the work, with the artwork, I realized at some point that I took a breath, or I moved back, and then the bowl fell. And maybe that's the very beginning of the edge. It's like letting go, or not going there, or this is not the way. Oh, it's
Stepping back a little.
stepping back instead of trying to move where it seems like this. It's as if there is a misinformation in there that the movement forward is there, or it can go there, like water. It needs to go somewhere else. Maybe there is a way through, but it has to go now somewhere else. Yeah.
It's still trying.
It's there. Yeah. There's this frustration. It's trying. It's this. Yeah, it wants to go through this way. There is this.
Doesn't it? It really does.
This determination. Like this is the way, but it can't.
Very painful to be stuck in that way, right?
Yeah, it is.
What would it have needed? What does it need? Do you have any sense? What might it have needed back then?
That the wall is taken away.
Okay. The wall is somehow taken away.
I don't think it can take it away.
But if it hadn't been put there in some way, life could have gone.
Yes. Yes.
And there's a big smile there. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, this wall is not supposed to be there, or it's blocking the
Somehow
path.
it's blocking something that should be allowed to flow and grow.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's an edge, I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I find that there's a fear and anxiety always in the past and current in different situations related to a stopped process. But there's also a huge and enormous drive to move forward, although I would never have known that word in the past, but almost a pressure to move forward that is there with the fear and the anxiety that goes with it, and sort of have to move into the fear in order to process, to move into and through that stopped process. And that has been extremely helpful in the past. And I just have to remember that for the future, for now.
And one thing that Regine, he talked about putting the fear over here, almost like you have the fear, but you would, because that would creating a space for the forward movement to happen. It's not denying the fear, it's acknowledging it, but it's letting it, setting it slightly to one side. That may not work for you at all. But I remember him saying, so it might be something to try, so that we're not denying the fear, but we're also saying not there is the fear and there is the implying.
I've
Both are here.
I think I've had to kind of move into the fear.
Okay, so that works for you.
Put it aside.
Yeah, for you, it's the moving into the fear. Yeah. No, so that's. Mhm. Whatever is working is what's important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
While I was doing exercise, what came up is this image of me as a child looking at my father, and he is very absorbed in the screen. And I had this like, all my attention is out there and wanting him to look back. And this like anxiety and this like kind of craving, I really relate to that with my emotional eating. I really go to eat and that kind of feeling. And then the process helped me to like just stay with that, exactly that moment. And then I look to the side, my ideal father is looking at me, and I just felt this like, just can't settle there. And this sense also is like, oh, I kept wanting the thing from my father that he just couldn't give it to me. This like in a way acknowledging the reality that I never wanted to acknowledge. Then this kind of also realizing I want attention and I can give it to me. And I'm receiving it also from this ideal father figure, that even when I'm not looking at him, I can always feel that he's looking at me and giving me the attention, the loving attention.
Mm.
Yeah, so thank
Wow.
you.
And you can feel it. You can feel it in your body, right? That's the good father that is able to give you that attention that you needed and wanted. And kind of accepting that your father couldn't do it.
Yeah.
but you can go on and give it to yourself in some way.
Yeah.
That's deep. Yeah. It's good to be able to feel it in your body.
Yeah. That's really calming.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like my whole nervous system just calmed down.
Nice. Do we need to, where are we going with this, with the time? It's 9 o'clock. Is it time for us to go into breakouts? What is the?
Well, Charles, you are sort of in charge there about when, but our general idea would be, that we go into breakout rooms at around 9. And then you could let us know how many people, that we should have maybe 3 people, and how we should go about sharing in the breakout rooms.
Yeah, I don't have any formula for that. It's except maybe people taking turns, dividing up the time.
One thing that we've done that's worked well is that maybe take a moment of silence in the breakout room of the 3, and then take turns, and the person speaks, and then the other 2 people just say a sentence or something about the impact that that makes on them, or an image of what they heard, or and then the 3 people have their turn with the other 2 giving that kind of reflection, and then maybe a couple of minutes at the end to talk about the process. Does that sound like what you would have in mind, Charles?
Yeah, that's fine. But I would let each group decide if that's what they want to do. That's good.
Okay, so Christine is gonna, and
I might
we'll-
just want to check with the group if there's anybody who wants to speak before we go into the group, if like there's an urgency on the part of anyone. Didn't get a chance to say something they really wanted to say.
I'm wondering about how one deals with the blockages that you're aware of.
Well, I said at one point, nothing needs to happen. And in a way, I think sometimes when we're with a blockage and we're kind of pushing, as opposed to being able to stay open to the experience of the blockage, it just gets more tangled, right? So sometimes we need to somebody talked about spaciousness, creating a sense of spaciousness, where in a sense, the blockage is also there for a reason, right? There's some way that it may be trying to protect us or whatever. So as long as we're battling it, we're probably not able to have the kind of curiosity and openness that'll allow it to feel accepted and moved. The way Lynn just said, it was just sort of like giving it attention. It already feels like it's receiving something it needed. I don't know if that helps, but.
Jean used to use the phrase being on its side, meaning the side of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so that, and he would use that whole thing, they would use that phrase, the whole thing about it.
whole thing, right?
So
Whole thing.
the whole thing, yeah. All right. Shall we go ahead into groups?
Can you just, Lynn, can you just repeat what we're going to do in the breakout room, the instructions?
Well, we'll have about 25 minutes, and each person will take 5 minutes or so. Take 5 minutes to just talk about what the process is for you. You don't have to go into the detail of what's blocked, or if you want to, you can. And then other people will just say, you know, a sentence about how that impacts on them, or a reflection image, and then go on to the next person. So each person will have 3 minutes, and then, 5 minutes and a couple of minutes of reflection, and then a few minutes at the end. Christine will give a 5-minute warning, and then the group can talk about what that was like or something. But whatever Charles is saying, whatever your group does is the right thing.
Yeah.
Those are just guidelines in
Right.
case.
And I think like you said, maybe you could start with just a bit of silence, like a minute for the whole group, just to sort of come in and be centered, right? You suggested something.
Right. Each other, make contact, right?
That's a nice idea, I think.
Right.